You might already know that this series was started by examining a character from the Touhou Project franchise, but given that there are a wide array of well-crafted and researched characters, looking at just one isn't even close to scratching the surface. For this reason, I feel that it's time to return to the Touhou series, and to the very same game where we left off, Touhou 11's Subterranean Animism, looking at not one, but a pair of equally fascinating, if not potentially terrifying characters. I'm the Kitsune Hawk, and today we're going to take a closer look at the Palace of the Earth Spirit's two manipulators of the mind, Satori and Koishi Komeiji. So get out your pencils, trivia enthusiasts, because this is character development. As you can imagine, looking at two characters with surprisingly different sources of inspiration would be a fairly difficult task, but there are some shared traits between Satori and Koishi, and I'd like to discuss them before I look at each of them individually. First off is their species. Satori and Koishi are a kind of Japanese yokai known as Satori, creatures with the ability to read minds and are typically said to be found in the mountains of Hida and Mino provinces, or if you're looking at a modern map of Japan, Gifu Prefecture. Oddly, their last name, Komeiji, is a common name in the Yamanashi prefecture, not Gifu, but its meaning, ancient bright earth, could reinforce the title of Subterranean Animism, thus explaining the surname. However, with a little bit of additional research, one can find that there is a specific Satori named Omoi, who lives on the slopes of Mount Fuji, which lies in both the Shizuoka and Yamanashi prefectures, thus linking the name Komeiji with the Satori. As for their designs, they may have very well been influenced by the famous Mexican artist Frida Kahlo de Rivera. You see, Kahlo was famous for painting a wide number of self-portraits, and one of the most well-known of her works is Las Dos Fridas. Even though the Komeiji sisters have nothing to do with the symbolism of the painting, it is worth noting that the external hearts and arteries bear a very striking resemblance to Satori and Koishi's third eyes. In fact, the Frida on the right is clasping a pair of scissors, having cut the artery that ties the two together. If this painting did indeed inspire the two, it's very likely that Koishi's decision to permanently close her third eye was a reference to this painting. This painting could have also influenced the numerous heart shapes present in both Satori and Koishi's designs. Now for the individual analysis, starting with the more prominently featured of the two, Satori. I'm sure many of you are thinking, yeah, that's real original, naming Satori after what she is. And I don't blame you in thinking that, as this is a play on words that gets lost in translation. You see, the kanji used to spell out Satori as a species roughly translates to consciousness, but Satori's name is spelled in hiragana, giving it a more flexible meaning where it can be either spelled out like the name of her species or as a word meaning sudden enlightenment. Like any one of her kind, Satori's most distinctive feature is her third eye, which gives her the abilities to read minds or hypnotize others. Now, consciousness is a tricky word to define in psychology, but it's generally seen as a person's awareness and perception. Memories and consciousness go hand in hand with each other, and monitoring our own thoughts is a benefit of being a self-conscious organism. Thus, Satori's ability to manipulate the conscience of her opponent, especially by emulating the trauma of the target's past memories, are an excellent portrayal and extension of the mythological Satori's ability to read the conscious minds of others. Satori's other key ability is limited hypnosis, and as mentioned in the Grimoire of Marissa, this is because she has to hypnotize her opponent into tapping into their memories, allowing her to emulate their trauma from there. Getting back to psychology, the definition of hypnosis is an altered state of consciousness in which the individual is more open to suggestion, which is the uncritical acceptance of ideas and beliefs. Basically, your consciousness is altered to where it is more believing of new information, but you still retain relative control of your own will. Memories can be dredged via hypnosis, but this isn't often successful as most information is not permanently stored, and even then, it mutates over time. Hence why Satori's imitation spell cards are not perfect copies and why she always emulates your current partner, the person who is very likely immediately on Reimu or Marissa's mind, thus the easiest stirred up memories to access. But the more complexly researched of the two is definitely Koishi, and now that we've learned basic psychology from Satori's inspiration, this should make understanding Koishi's influence much easier. In fact, the best place to start is a bit of an odd one, that being her theme, Hartmann's Yokai Girl. The song itself is an auditory illusion known as a musical palindrome, meaning that it's composed in a way to sound remarkably similar when played in reverse. For comparison, here's the first 10 seconds of Hartmann's Yokai Girl. Now listen to the first 10 seconds in reverse. And finally, the first 10 seconds of both versions played at the same time. But that's only half of the puzzle. Who does the word Hartmann refer to, you might ask? Well, this could refer to two famous psychologists. The first is Eduard von Hartmann, whose first and most famous work was entitled The Philosophy of the Unconscious, dealing with the psychology of the subconscious mind in 3 stages. Von Hartmann's magnum opus may have also influenced Koishi's ability to manipulate the subconscious of her opponent. As for the other psychologist reference, that would be Heinz Hartmann, who studied ego, a part of Freudian psychology believed to balance one's morality and desire. In fact, speaking of Sigmund Freud, many other aspects of Freudian psychology are referenced in the names of Koishi spellcards, including superego and id, along with Freudian psychology itself in Hopeless Masquerade. Some fans have even joked about the Embers of Love spellcard being phallic in appearance, and if that is indeed the case, that's a clever but subliminal nod to the notably sexual nature of Freudian psychology, perhaps specifically the phallic stage of psychosexual development. Further references to Hermann Rorschach, the creator of the ink test that bears his name, and John Larson, the inventor of the polygraph, can also be seen in Koishi spellcards. Ultimately, Satori and Koishi Komeiji are two characters who draw some rather complicated and extended inspiration from psychology, both basic and complex. And while the two are typically seen by fans as a pair of moe archetypes, the open character interpretation of the Touhou series gives them the potential to be two of the most frightening characters in the entire cast. And with powers and inspiration that in-depth and serious, that's personally how I see them. Yet it's that series of psychology-driven inspiration that makes me admire all the thought that went into their designs and makes me hope they'll be around in future installments. This has been Character Development. Thanks for watching, and you can thank Vicky Bong for suggesting Koishi, and on the very first episode of Character Development, no less. As always, I'd appreciate it if you shared your thoughts in the comments, use the annotations here to see other videos of mine or from my friends, or you can request characters I could cover in future episodes.